Hi, Madhujit. It's 11:30, so I thought I'd say hi.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you. Hi to everybody else who's logged in.
So we shall start now.
Ready whenever you are.
Okay, so just before we start, a couple of logistics things. So we requested everyone to be on mute, and whenever they have a question, when the host or the co-host request, they can unmute themselves or show themselves. This video is being recorded and will be available on a YouTube channel. It is also being relayed live on Facebook. So anybody who has a question and is okay with showing their face, please, you're most welcome to unmute yourself and also put your video on. All right, so thank you once again. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us this Saturday, still morning. And we have somebody. Claire, we can see you. Hi. So, we're starting this series called Beyond Beliefs. Now, Henry Ford once said that whether you think you can or you cannot, you're right. So it's all about our beliefs. Whatever we believe we can do, we definitely can do. The entire series is all about how our belief system shapes us and how we move beyond our belief to do things which we've not done before. So people like you, everyone like us, people like Sita, and everyone in the team, the one step they took to go beyond their beliefs to do things that they've never done before. So with that, once again, welcome Sita and welcome all the participants.
Thank you. Happy weekend, everyone. It's nice to have this on a Saturday morning.
Yes. So a little bit about Sita right now. Pardon me, I'm going to read it out from here. Sita is a computer science engineer with 13 years of experience in EdTech and mobile technology sectors. She has extensive experience in establishing startups and leading investment transactions across Southeast Asia. Sita is a strong believer in providing equal opportunity for all, which is why she founded the Angel Hub, a platform that supports women entrepreneurs by providing access to high growth resources, industry experts, and capital. Currently, Sita heads InnoPark Ventures, an early stage fund that believes in investing and supporting tech talent and tech-based ideas from ground up. So with that, Sita, let me start by saying, that's the introduction that was there on my the written one. But we met each other, if you remember, February 2015. It was your birthday, and you just landed back from Singapore. So we partnered together, and before that, the first conversation we had was at 10 p.m. in the night when a common friend, Abhiram, introduced us. So we started and went ahead this program called Mentorite, which was a mentoring forum, a group mentoring forum for women. From there, you moved on to launching Angel Hub. And we would like to know more about, which was Angel Hub, like from 80 women to 1,000 women forum. So we would like to know, how did you move your journey from Mentorite to Angel Hub and Angel Summit?
Thank you, Mandajit, for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And we go back 5 years. Like you said, we met on the day that I landed back from Singapore. And our first conversation was at 10 p.m. in the night, which is past your bedtime. I know that. I can still thank Abhi for the introduction. So the journey, I remember every bit of our conversation because it was, an instant connect, and we were on the same page about how we develop platforms to help women like ourselves, where we give us an opportunity to network, an opportunity to give access to resources, and just form these group of successful communities of women. Um, as you know, it's always been in my mind that we launch such platforms. And my previous experience is always about startups and dealing with startup founders and, you know, raising capital, so on and so forth, or launching a startup in a particular city or a country. So the common thread was most of the women founders, we had similar problems, right? Again, it was about societal barriers or financial barriers, whether, you know, didn't matter what ethnicity, what country or what city. So we thought, okay, now let's build a platform where we can help each other go beyond belief, if I can say so, right? The limitations that we've set for ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think it came about from the idea where people, many people have helped me through my journey. And so to answer your question of the journey from the 80 people, so Mentorite was this group mentoring program, like Mandirjit said, where we had one industry expert and a table, sort of like speed dating mentoring, we'd call it, right? Like speed mentoring. So that went on to being a success, which was our first litmus test, right? Whether it would work or not. Then the idea quickly sort of snowballed into, what if we get women from all walks of life, men and women from all walks of life, who want to specifically support women entrepreneurs or working women. So the idea from then went from one cold call to having sort of, I think the first edition we had at ISB to having 800 women show up. And if I can say 150, 200 men show up, where we had heads of industries and, you know, politicians, just people from the film and media sector. So people from all walks of life show up and share their stories, actually be vulnerable on stage. That all started from the belief that we can do more, and, you know, we can achieve more by just pushing ourselves a little.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was the journey there, to keep it short. There was a lot of stories, but that is the short end.
Yeah, and then you went on to conduct the same kind of summits in new cities like Delhi, Mumbai, where you don't have any. I mean, at least in Hyderabad, you knew some people. In Delhi, Mumbai, hardly anybody that you knew. And then you went there, you created that platform. It's an amazing journey. So maybe you may want to add that as well. How do you manage in the new cities?
Sure. Thanks for bringing that up, because often I think when you're at the end of it, sort of, or in the middle, you forget all the hard work that's gone in before. So yes, I mean, the new cities, Delhi and Bombay especially, I didn't know anybody. I mean, you have a couple of friends in new cities, but you don't really think you're going to go there and have an event of a scale where you're expecting 1,000 people to show up. So that in itself was a big journey. And again, I was constantly fighting the fear of, well, it's a new place, you know, how are we going to get the venue? And, you know, for people who've just joined us, or for people who don't know so much about Angel Summit, we are not a cash-rich organization where we're having all of these summits in, you know, 5-star hotels or plush locations. It is usually a partnership with an educational institution, or with an organization that believes and supports the idea and the cause, which is to support women entrepreneurs and working women, right? So it started with that fear. And then we said, okay, why don't we just start having conversations with people in these different locations? And trust me, it wasn't the friends that I called. It was LinkedIn connections. It was connections through you and many mentors and many other people that we just probably met in a conference, or, you know, I had been introduced over call with someone. So I think that journey was quite the learning curve for all of us, and it was a cohesive effort. I had a small, very small team, but a very, very passionate team. So all of us pushed each other, I think, to do more. So every time I'd be like, do you think Dr. Kiran Bedi's office will really take our call? And somebody on the team would be like, why not? Call, and then only then would know. So it was a bunch of cold calls, a bunch of cold emails, and a lot of help from everybody else who was in our support system.
Oh, I remember those days, your sleepless nights, and
yeah,
how on the summit day you would be like trying to be absolutely looking charming despite no sleep in the night. Yeah, thank you for sharing that journey. And what I heard that a lot of mentoring and a lot of networking. So I'm going to come back to this later, but I want to go back a little bit in time. And when we first met, you landed from Singapore. And Singapore, as you told me, was a new country for you. So I'm talking about Delhi and Mumbai. We've already talked about new cities, but also you'd landed in Singapore as a new country. I'm sure you would have networked and found mentors to find your feet there. But what are the couple of learnings that you had? Learnings about breaking your beliefs or going beyond your beliefs to settle in a new country.
Sure. So when I moved to Singapore in 2000, towards the end of 2010, I think there are plenty of learnings, Madhujit, but I think in the interest of time, and three massive ones that I want to share is the first thing is that people should know is that I went there first to sort of explore the city, because I've always wanted to work in Southeast Asia, and since I didn't speak any Cantonese or Mandarin, I couldn't go straight to China, and or work in parts that were predominantly spoke the native language. So Singapore was that perfect fit of East meets West, and then and it's an absolutely beautiful city, and easy city, I must say. So when my journey started, it wasn't that I went there with a job security, right? So it was to first explore the place, meet people. So it was literally like starting from ground zero. And for me, the biggest learning, as somebody who'd been close to my parents and grandparents all my life and worked and lived close to family and at the same place, right? Studied, worked, and lived at the same place. It was a completely new ballgame. The first thing, there are rules and regulations, especially in a place like Singapore that So the one thing that helped me was to connect with expats and locals, right? I looked for events where I could, I was an engineer, so I looked for tech events. And then the biggest learning was connect with people. People will help you when you connect with them. They've been in similar situations. Connect with people in similar situations. They will help you, right? Or they will give you a piece of knowledge that that might be useful for you. That was one. The second thing is I was thoroughly discouraged out of goodwill, right? A lot of people came forth and said, it's a new place, and if you should have looked for an opportunity before you even went there to check it out, and this and that. So for me, I was also fighting that fear of, oh my God, this is a new place. So yeah, maybe they were right. Maybe, I should have attended all these interviews first and secured a job and then gone, because it's also my upbringing, right? I come from a traditional South Indian family where we're encouraged to first secure that job, and and then go for it. So the other learning was, it's okay to have self-doubt, and it is okay to evaluate your risk. But if you want to, as a young, well, I had 2 or 3 years of experience before I'd gone, fairly young in the corporate world. It is to push yourself to explore new boundaries, and not to hold yourself back all the time, to be playing in that safe area, right? It is good to have calculated risk, but it's also good to push yourself to explore new boundaries. Yeah. So first, network. Second, push yourself. There can be some self-doubt and, a lot of people telling you a lot of things, but you have to tone that down and say, okay, what is your plan? You do have a plan, so stick to the plan. Third, ask for help. Always ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. We don't have to always think we can do it by ourselves, and it's wrong to ask for help, or maybe somebody is going to think something. No, it's okay to ask for help. The three biggest learnings.
Interesting. So, you know, uh, I would like to get the word women here, because a lot of things that you talked about, we women hesitate to do. And specifically, I mean, I would still say that other genders also hesitate. I wouldn't say that they're all out there, but statistics says that women more so, they hesitate to look for mentors. They hesitate to ask for help. They hesitate to network. I mean, we are extremely good in networking, but in personal networking, but we don't ask for, we don't go out and network like you did. So what is this, what do you have to share about your journey and your experience about mentors and networking and asking for help? Specifically these three.
Sure. So all these three have had a monumental impact in my life specifically. So for me, it is more sharing my experience and what I've seen works for my peers, okay. Right? Angel Summit was born with the idea that we create the networking platform for women. And I don't want to shy away from saying for women, because at least when we started in, I think 2015, early 2015, late 2014, we did not have very many networking platforms available in India specifically for women entrepreneurs or working women professionals. Whereas if I may say, for men, for most of my peers as well, that came very innately. It was natural. They'd go hang out for a drink or a meal, or, they were play golf or, whatever it is, or sport or something.
Yeah.
So why is it important to network? It is important to network because when you meet like-minded individuals, you are re-energized and reassured about your ideas, right? And we all need that, no matter how passionate we are, no matter how fantastic we are at job, regardless of gender, we all need that re-energizing.
Yes.
Which is why networking is so important. Mm-hmm. So I think both, in your professional and personal life, I think when you meet like-minded individuals, there's a spark that comes, and then one idea snowballed into something else. It could, it could lead up to many things. It could lead up to new job opportunities. It could lead up to new conversations, new business ideas, a ton of other things. Maybe something that's been fear, a belief system that you've been fighting to go beyond, but a like-minded individual has already done it, so it gives you some kind of strength to go forward.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one. And Madhujit, if I may ask, what is the second thing? Mentorship, you said, right?
Mentorship, and perhaps you may want to club the second and the third, the networking and mentoring.
Right.
Oh, sorry, asking for help and mentoring.
Sure.
I think probably they go together.
Yeah, they do go together. So while there have been many, many mentors who've played a very huge role in my life specifically, I would like to sort of take two quick examples, right? Only because, I could name a few mentors right now, even on the screen that I see, which includes you and, somebody else who's, been a part of my life directly or indirectly, who's mentored me, right? So two examples, quick examples I could allude to is one, which was formal in the beginning, one mentorship which was formal and then went on to being an informal mentorship. Mm-hmm. I was lucky enough to be a part of a fantastic team with the Satyam School of Leadership, and I was exposed to coaching and mentoring very early on. Mm-hmm. But believe me, even though I had fantastic people around me and senior coaches and mentors around me, I didn't realize the value until my own manager put me through that journey. Mm-hmm. And this specific example leads to me, I was always hesitant when it came to presenting my ideas in a larger group. I was great one-on-one, but when it came to a larger group, there was always hesitation. So my manager then, Nishi Levitt, who's a fantastic human being, who's not with us anymore, at that point had said to me, Sita, I observed that, you email me all your ideas and you email all the presentation, but you're the quietest when it comes to a group meeting, right? Why is that? And I said, oh no, I just feel comfortable. And she knew I was making excuses because there was a fear of rejection there.
All
So
right.
she put me in situations where I had to present my ideas in large group. And the only thing she said to me, she never asked me, what are your fears? How do we solve them? It was nothing that like that. She just said to me, imagine yourself. Why do you have to look at yourself as a fresh graduate who's joined a group, an organization? Why don't you find your senior voice? And why don't you imagine yourself being a senior manager here and then presenting your ideas? So what? Right? So that mentorship sort of, I think, cascaded. I think I still hold on to that, and I still hesitate when there are large groups of people. And being social is something else, but being presenting in front of people and communicating to large audiences is something else. So that carried me through. So I find my senior voice, and it was because of that one gold nugget of mentorship that I've carried on finding my senior voice whenever I need to state a point or make a presentation, especially in the finance sector, in the investment sector now, where, I could be a junior compared to somebody who's had 30 years or 40 years of experience. When I need to make a point, I need to find my senior voice, right? And moving swiftly.
And if you don't mind my interrupting it to add to that, because even in forums that when I go in for training, some of my junior most participant has so much value add to do from that perspective. So if that junior most also does not share that idea, we've all lost that idea in the group. So they come from a different perspective, and we need different perspectives at every stage in our life. So maybe you're not finding a senior most voice, but you're finding your own voice also would help, because that perspective is definitely different from others.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then the second example I wanted to allude to is one of my friends, Varsha, who is a very integral part of my journey in building the Angel Summit, because she believes in, empowerment when it comes to, women in business, whether you're on your own or whether you're a working professional. Right. So, and Varsha is, 4 to 5 years younger, but, she played a major role in being a mentor. Like I said, sometimes she would just be like, Sita, why can't you just pick up the phone and make that call or write that email? What is anybody going to think of you? Like, what is the problem? So, that was further along in my professional journey, but it was still nice to have somebody like that. And, it was a very informal thing, but what I mean by sharing these examples and why I'm sharing these two very different examples is, because you can have mentorship in any shape or form, informal or formal. It could be your partners, it could be friends, it could be peers. So I think that was my biggest thing, and that led to me consistently now asking for help when I needed it. And you brought in a very important point, Madhurjit. You said, as women, innately, we believe we're super players, or there is the social conditioning that you must do well in every area of your life, right? And you must do it by yourself.
So Miss Perfectionist syndromes and the all do it all by myself syndromes.
Right. And I was very much that, because I was like, but I can and I want to, and there is no harm. Then I've realized life becomes so much easier when you ask for help. Right? When you ask for help. And I'm just using the word ask for help a lot, is because people don't do that enough. And I see it as, my peers not doing it enough. I see still women not doing it enough. It is okay. In the professional environment, you can put your hand up and say, I am unable to do this. I need help. And these are the 3 things that would really help me to, achieve what I've set out to achieve. So I think many instances that have gotten me through a lot. I did give you an example of Dr. Kiran Bedi's office, but that was just one thing that went a phone call to Mary Com, who's, we all know, a professional boxer. And it was just that I had called the Boxing Foundation, and somebody at the phone had picked up, or whether it was Shireen Ban, and the call went straight to her, and I didn't know what to say because I expected somebody else to be like, oh, Sita, where are you from? And could you please tell us what the purpose of this call is? And, stuff like that. So it was all that, breaking that belief that, I needed to first think about all the self-doubt and, drown in the self-doubt, and then not go forward. Yeah.
So one thing that I missed in the beginning was introduce our co-host Kirtika. So Kirtika, if you're around, can you help us with the questions?
Yes. Hi, Sita. It is very nice to hear the entire journey, how the whole thing came so beautifully. So there are a couple of questions from the audience. May I go ahead asking one by one?
Sure.
Yeah, the first one is from Claire. What was your biggest personal belief barrier that you had to overcome? And what do you feel has been your biggest victory in your journey? That is first one.
Sure. So my biggest personal barrier, the first one was, Claire, if I could say, like I explained, it was that I was, I went to an engineering school in India. I was always around family. I was, I traveled extensively during my childhood and teenage years, but always with family and all of that. So for me to make my life in without any of my known support system in another country was the biggest barrier. What am I going to do? Who am I going to live with? How am I going to find a place to live? It was as small as that, right? And then I had to connect with people on these forums where, they were discussing, because I don't even think Airbnb was launched then. So it wasn't even that. So you had to find communities of people, expats who had done that before, and then connect with them. So my biggest fear was being all by myself in a new country with no support system at all. And I think my biggest victory was that as well, because by the time I came back, it was like I had another family, and I'd always tell my mom, okay, now I need to go home. When I come to India and then I would fly back, I would always say, okay, it's time to go home, which meant Singapore literally became my second home. And I think if I hadn't pushed myself, and if I'd let my self-doubt prevail during that time, because there were also a group of people from my support system who meant well for me and who said, I don't know if you'd be able to make it because the government is not allowing a certain kind of employment passes to be passed and all of that. So I think my biggest learning was that, and my biggest victory was that as well, to be thrown into the deep end in a completely different place, a completely different country, set up rules, regulations, everything.
Great, thanks, Sita. That was adventurous, I would say. So the second question is from Shivani. She says that, did you face any clashes in terms of ideas or talks with mentors or any network? If yes, how did you tackle it?
Sure. Thank you for that question, because it segues into conflict management, which is a huge thing, because we usually don't like conflict or confrontation. So I did find, like I said, even when we were starting the Angel Summit, there was a lot of, so what are you going to do? You're giving up your full-time role and coming here, and you want to start something, because people didn't get the idea, some of them didn't get the idea that they said, start off small. Why do you want to do a big thing? Start off small. And then I said, no, we must go all out, because, the whole idea is for it to be accessible to everybody. So the confrontation there was people saying, but do you have a concrete goal? Do you have a concrete goal? No, I have an idea as to where I want to take this. Why must I have an end objective already? I know my objective, but what is the concrete goal? Okay, if 1,000 people don't show up, 100 people show up, when we still have managed to spread the message that we, want to. So the confrontation was there. I think for me personally, it's an important thing that I learned very early on, again, from one of my mentors, Ed Cohen. He used to say, when there's conflict, go to the source of the conflict. Do not use middle people to go. And, then, because there's so many stages of that. So if the question, if I may say, if there's, a disagreement with anybody, I'd go to the source and say, oh, did you think that I meant this, or whatever it is? And I think it says, sorry if I digressed a little bit, Shivani also said, if I disagreed with my mentors, you absolutely can disagree with your mentors. And mentors are not here to tell you what to do and what not to do. They will always guide you with their experience. And it's good to challenge mentors also, because that's how the conversation is built. No good mentor will ever say, listen to me, I am right, and you have to follow what I say. So yeah, that was that. And if I digressed a little, sorry, pardon my enthusiasm.
Thanks, Seetha. I think two questions are those. And Madhujit, ma'am, if you have anything more, we can discuss that.
Yeah, so Seetha, just to share with you, Claire joins us from Johannesburg and Shivani joins us from Singapore, if I'm not mistaken. So from your...
Hi, Shivani. Hi, Claire. I've got so many South African friends. It's from Singapore, actually.
And Claire says you are global now.
Global, yes, you
yes.
Truly are.
Yes. So Seetha, that was extremely interesting. And one question that I have at this stage is, now, if you were to look back to Seetha, who was just starting off Angel Summit was just an idea, and you were taking off from there. Now, what advice would you have for that Seetha today?
To that Seetha, I would say, be kind to your mind. I think we all are so harsh on ourselves and such big critiques of ourselves. We don't take the time to say, it's okay. Because again, this is from my personal experience. It is, if I had just, been a little more relaxed. I think by the third edition, I was more relaxed and the team was like, oh, wow, Seetha, you've really changed and transformed. You're not running around like a headless chicken anymore, even though when things are going right. I think it is I would ask myself to be kind to myself, kind to my mind. Yeah. Because I constantly, then it would be, oh, whether is this happening or is that happening? And then self-critique, am I doing enough? Am I doing enough? Or maybe I'm not doing enough. Or, it's that constant battle. Don't have such a big battle with your mind. It's okay, Seetha, just be kind to yourself. I think I'll leave it at that. Nothing more I would say to her.
That's interesting. Be kind to your mind. I like that. I'll take your permission to use it in my training program.
Please, I'm sure I'm sure I've seen it also somewhere. So it's not, but I've always told myself that, yeah.
So Kirtika, over to you. Questions, please.
I think I see one from Parvati.
Yeah, so this one is from my mentor. Parvati is my mentor, if you're aware. Yes. So, hey Seetha, good to hear the story of your journey. What's your thought on whether the trigger motivation to overcome barriers from within or more from others prodding you?
Yeah, I think.
What's your thought on whether the trigger motivation to overcome barriers is within or from outside when they are, the trigger to overcoming barriers?
Right.
Yeah, so overcoming beliefs or barriers or, thoughts.
Yeah, Parvati, you're a big inspiration too. Started drumming very late, and then you're a kind of a rock star, if I may say so. So so yes, I understood the question. So you said whether it's my fighting spirit or it's from others prodding you. So I've always had, to be honest, I've always had of that fighting spirit where I need to push myself, but there is always this self-limiting belief that, maybe something could go terribly wrong. So there was always that worst case scenario. I was scared of that worst case scenario. So if you ask me if it's a trigger, yes, I was a very I was a fighter from the beginning. I wanted to challenge the norms always. But the support from the other people took me the extra mile. Maybe I would have traveled 2x, but I went 10x because of the support system. So I did have that because I wanted to challenge the norms, and I didn't want to be a silent spectator, but that was also because it was circumstantial. If it was because certain things had happened, and then you realize over a period of time with experience that you should speak up and you should challenge the norms, and it is okay. And to go beyond your limits of what self-limitation was a big challenge for me, where I constantly put myself in a little cage and said, but maybe I can't, and maybe I can't. But yeah, that spirit was there, but the support system pushed me. And it wasn't, I'd say, prodding, or I think it was more, like I said, like-minded people. So I would see that fierceness in them and the passion in them as well. And I'd be like, well, I can do it as well. So less prodding and more self-realization, I think.
Great. So Sita, we have another question from Rajni. Coming to asking for help, I always felt it was looked down upon. How do we tackle this?
So I'm a testimony, and I think Madhujit is a testimony as well to, we are big believers in asking for help. And you're right. I'm glad you put it in the rawest form, right? It's looked down upon. That's what we think. But no, do you know the countless, I mean, it's so nice when you get, a random LinkedIn message and they says, hey, I like what you're doing. Do you think we can do something together? That is, somebody's reached out to you, acknowledging that you're doing something good and that they could do something that would mutually benefit each other, right? Maybe if it is something that you found difficult, I'd say the easiest cheat code I would say is find a common ground where maybe you don't want to, because I know it is a big barrier to overcome. If just because I say ask for help, not everybody is going to say, oh yeah, I'm going to ask for help. The way that you can start is step one could be find a common ground that is mutually beneficial. As human beings, when we feel like it's mutually beneficial, then you don't feel, the whole burden of asking for help, right? But let me tell you, it's asking for help is simple. Don't overcomplicate and don't overthink it. If you need A, B, and C, and you could always offer to them. You could say, if there's anything that I might do for you, or that I could help you or support you in any way, please let me know. I will be more than happy to do so. Maybe that will sort of, if I've answered your question, maybe that will sort of ease it off.
Yeah, so if I may add over here, when we went for Mentorite, if you remember, and you approach your Tech Mahindra for space, and yes, and I mean, if I were in your place, probably I would even not think I'll have that complex things. How can an organization give this space just for like that? And when you went with a vision, and it just came on a platter. So when you asked, it came on a platter.
Yeah. So I think Madhujit was referring to this time when we wanted to have a mentoring session for 80 people. We didn't have the space, and then we thought, we have a lot of leaders and again, mentors from Tech M. Why don't we just go and ask them? And the initial thought was, yeah, they're an organization. Why will they support a private thing? But it is amazing how people will come through when your objective is clear and when your ask is clear. So I would say, ask yourself what you want first to ask the other person. For me, I do this tactic of my top 3 things. I stick to my top 3 always and then break it down. So I think, Rajni, was it? Rajni, I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, I think you did it, Sita. Thanks for that.
Thanks, Geetika.
Anyone, Geetika?
I think that's all, ma'am. We don't have anything more.
So something from the students, I believe 2 colleges have joined us, BBRIT and IBS. So okay. Anyone from there, please go ahead and ask. Before they ask, probably I have a question to ask. Is that, again, I'm going to come back to the fact that while this is a very generic question, but specifically for women, you're a computer science background, and now you're into venture capitalists and and those platform and Angel Summit, which is not related to your education at all. So what is that advice, or what is the thing that you would say for somebody who's looking for a career change or restarting their career, or perhaps even starting their career late in their life, not like usual out of college, maybe after college they've spent about 5-6 years and then they want to start a career. So what is your advice to all of them, that how do they go about it?
So what has helped me, and in my experience, is to look for avenues that would align to my objective and passion. I was always very clear as to what what my passion was. It was to be with startups. It was to be in the entrepreneurial world, simply because you meet fascinating people, and there's so many ideas being thrown around, and it's a constant stimulation of your mind and your expertise and all of that. So I looked for avenues that gave me the opportunity to work in that. So even if I had to dial back the role that I would otherwise be offered as an engineer, I still chose that. So it's a trade-off. So career transition, if you ask me, Madhurjit, is that for the younger ones in the audience, I would say. Career transition is always...
Even for the older ones, supposing I'm looking for a career transition at this age.
Yeah.
So what is it? What is the advice you would give me?
I would say, for example, diversity and inclusion. I know how extensively and how passionate you are about the, extensively researched that subject is for you, and how passionate you are about the whole thing. So anything, again, network with people from that background, or the passion that you are seeking, right? The expertise that you're seeking. Network, I would say, less than network, even connect with people. Even in a situation like this, when all of us are confined to our homes globally, you can reach out to people, because technology has made it so easy for all of us to do that, right? A simple message on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. Reach out to the people that can help you and have the expertise that you are looking for, that you're looking, the opportunities that you're looking for in this. That's my small piece of advice. Connect, network, even virtually. Keep it going.
Yes, and to tell you my personal experience, at this time when everybody is spending most of the time in front of their laptops, there is better chances they respond on LinkedIn and other social media platforms than there would be, because otherwise the time is divided between laptop and other areas and personal meetings. So when they're on laptop, there are better chances of them to I've got that. My experience is that they're responding more during these times. So thanks for sharing that, LinkedIn.
Yep. Yeah. It's helped me. It'll help people. People will respond, and it's okay if people don't respond also. Maybe they're just busy doing something else.
Oh, that's an interesting one. Okay, so I guess we don't have any more questions. Kirtika, can you tell us if we have any more questions?
There is nothing right now, Madhurjit.
All right. So before we leave, what is your advice to the youngsters, or BBR, IT, and IBA students, or any other student who's here right now?
What is my one advice?
I'm speaking in your venture, InnoPark Ventures. You're dealing a lot with college students. So what do you see around, and what do you have to say for the students?
Sure. With InnoPark Ventures, what we are also strongly advocating is investing in the student community, because what we've realized is, especially now, there is no one role or one size fits all kind of a job opportunity. You have a multitude of options to choose from. Be open and be curious, learn something new, have mentors, ask for mentorship, be mentors to other people. If you're in the fourth year, mentor the second year ones, or the first year or third years. Group peer mentoring is better than any other kind of mentoring. Share your experiences. Be open. Please don't think there is one job opportunity from the placement cell and you will have that interview and then you will have to study for that interview, and that is the only job that you're going to have your entire life. No, there are so many different kind of opportunities available. And if you have the entrepreneurial spirit, reach out to people like us, reach out to people like, organizations like InnoPark Ventures, that that is ready to give students a platform where they can share their ideas and pitch their ideas with investors and bring them to life. So please keep yourself open to new opportunities is what I would. Don't put yourself in a box. Gone are those days where you have to be a doctor or an engineer or a scientist. You can be many things. And while being an entrepreneur, you can be an entrepreneur while being a student. You can be an entrepreneur while working on something else. So please be open. And whatever you choose, whatever is your passion, even if you want to pursue music, and engineering is really not your thing, have a plan. When having a plan, puts a lot less pressure, right? It's a lot less pressure on you having a plan. Don't be, even when you're going to mentors, please go with your asks. The mentors are not here to fix your life. They are here to guide you and for you to, take use of their expertise and, wisdom. So please be clear as to what is it that you would like from a mentor or from an expert when you're going to them. That's my, I know it's not one piece of advice. That's what really helped me. So I just shared my experience.
That was very insightful, because most of the students these days, we often come across that when we speak about mentorship, there's absolutely no idea what is vision or anything. They just go turn up and end up feeling that they got nothing, because it has to be prepared and they have to be even more aware of what are the questions they have for the mentor and things like that. It was very important thing you shared, Sita.
Thanks, Kirtika.
Kirtika, any more questions or do we call it off?
As of now, that's all we have.
I see a couple of them coming up here.
In Facebook, they have just given,
Okay, so Shivani asked again, one last question, Sita, a tagline for your success, what would it be?
Tagline for success? Nice question, Shivani. I've never been asked that before and I've never thought about. Actually, I would quote somebody, Maya Angelou, one of my favorite poets ever, and then, nothing will work unless you do. So I think it starts from you. Nothing will work unless you do. If I'm getting that line right, you start, you define your success, you do the hard work, you find opportunities, it always starts with work, you. So nothing will work unless you do. That's it. I think.
We have
just put to.
We have, I think we have one more question, Sita.
Yeah.
So it's from Shipra. How do you think we can change the perception of people who say this is not possible? That is somewhere is a demotivating factor.
Right. So if I understand correctly, are you saying you want to change the perception of the other person, or if they're telling you that it's not possible, you can't do that?
Yeah, I think the second one is what she meant. Like.
Okay. So first of all, I think there will always be, no matter what you do, even what can I take, world's best tennis player, even Roger Federer will have somebody saying that's not right when he's serving, a certain way. So you will, no matter how much you've achieved or how successful you are or how, new you are to anything that you're doing, you will always have criticism. You will always have to stick to the point. So my biggest thing is, biggest advice is tone down the other demotivating factors, right? Because you'll always, I have it, Madhujit has it, Kirtika will have it, Parvati will have it, any number of people. There are so many different people with different ideas. Tone that down, tone that, you can only protect yourself. Please don't make it your mission to change everybody's perspective about what you're doing. So if they're saying, sometimes it's okay to smile and nod. And if somebody is giving you very harsh feedback, say, I appreciate your feedback. I will consider that. And it is okay. You carry on doing what you're doing. I understand that it's demotivating, but they will always be that. And turn it off. So if you feel like it's hurting you too much, turn it off. It's okay. You're not obligated to listen to everything everybody's saying. So that is my advice. Madhujit, anything you would want to add?
Yeah, when I started off as diversity and inclusion consultant, there were people who said, "Oh, this doesn't work in India. This may be true in the West." And there were people within the family also who said, "Oh, women have equal opportunities. Why are you talking about it?" So, and down the journey, 6 years now, people have changed their perception. So I was true to what I wanted to do. I knew what I wanted to do. I'd done my homework, so I didn't listen to them. That's about it. I didn't fight with them, but I didn't listen to them. So
Great. Great, Madhujit, ma'am.
I have one thing that's caught my eye, and I think this is students ask, and usually people ask, Kirtika, if I may ask it out, it says from Anushka, it says sometimes you don't know that you're doing things right. Is it correct to always follow your instinct, right?
Yes. I was going to ask that question next.
This is a question that all of us, need to think about, because even at this stage, sometimes I'm like, am I doing the right thing by following my passion always? And, that's why I think, again, circling back to having a plan, to having an objective. You do not have to have an end goal for everything in life. Have your objective, your passion, your objective, your belief system, whatever it is. Make note of that, and a calculated risk, right? Nobody's saying leave everything and then jump into this, whatever. Like, I like sailing, so suddenly I'm off on a boat. I genuinely like sailing, by the way, and I would love to sail for 2 months in a year, but that is not practical, right? So what I mean is, please again circle back to mentors. If you know somebody who's done what you want to do or what you're about to do, it's always good to have an honest conversation with that person, because you will always know. It is sort of like, again, your cheat code, right? They've been through that journey, so they will know the ups and downs, and then you can assess for yourself whether those ups and downs will be your ups and downs. So do that, have an open conversation, and with people who've had that journey before. Take a calculated risk. Calculated risk does not mean like shaking in fear. It means calculated risk. Life is always about a trade-off. We have traded off so many things for other things that I wanted to achieve. So there is no perfect scenario. You have to make your own perfect scenario. Madhujit, if you want.
Great. And we have one more question, Sita. Do we have time, or can we take that up?
Madhujit, how much time do we have?
So we are at 12:21. If everyone's okay, we can take the last question now.
Okay, great. Yeah. So there's this question from Auria. Initially, not being that confident person in the room while sharing your ideas or presenting to them, can you share how you tried to overcome that? Like when you hesitated or felt butterflies, how did you try to calm yourself and just present your ideas to your seniors?
Sure. That's Aurea. Thank you for that question. So what I would do, I think even now I have that initial hesitation and butterflies in my stomach. So I can't say I completely overcame that, right? So I used to do this, I don't know, physically, I used to focus on, the walls of the room, because if it made me nervous that there are a lot of people, I would make eye contact with one person and then and keep my gaze moving, right? Towards something that was inanimate at the back. That's how I overcame it first, because then I'm not looking at people's reactions and wondering what I should do immediately about that reaction. So physically that helped me. So I would look at a wall beyond a person. But it was important for me because also thanks to Nishi, she always said, you must keep your head up. Nobody wants to listen to somebody who's always doing this, you must keep your gaze intact. But it's always difficult to, if there are 100 people in the room, or especially seniors, difficult to look into each people, everybody's eyes and, make that contact. So I would look at like an inanimate thing and and another prep I would do is I would do this. Somehow this helped me. I think it also came from somebody, I don't know if it was one of my mentors or somebody else told me just before we were speaking together, I think pitching or something like that. They said, do this. This always helps me before I go in. And knowing your space, knowing the space in which that you will be presenting and feeling like that's your space always helped me. So I would step into the meeting room 10 minutes early and sort of just get a feel for the space. So knowing the space that you're presenting in, hope that helps. And seniors are also just people, it's okay. That was another thing in my mind. Seniors are also people. I was constantly encouraged to say, put yourself in a senior person's shoes. So even now when I have board meetings, they're all at least 20 years senior to me. But I have to think of myself as an equal, as for them to hear my voice and to go with, what I'm saying. And preparation, if I may add. Please prep. When you're prepared, people will listen. Don't wing it. Winging it never works.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sita. I think that the last line you said, seniors are also people, that really has a deep meaning, because they've also crossed all the stages and they're there. So I think that we have answered her question.
Before we leave, Kirtika, can we have all the videos on and let's have a quick picture, whoever wants there?
Yeah, I would love to see.
Yes.
You're welcome, Anushka. Anushka says, thank you. There you are. Hi. We're all working from home, so no problem. I think we can have everybody. Hi, it was so nice. Thank you all for joining in.
Yeah. Hey, hello.
And thank you. Before I sign off, I would say thank you, Madhujit, for this opportunity. Another thing I went beyond belief is I thought I wouldn't be able to do this virtual thing. And I said, Madhujit, I don't know, I'm better off being the interviewer, or I'm better off being behind the scenes. And she said, excuse me, but you need to go beyond your beliefs. So get on that call. So I'll sign off with that. Thank you so much.
And just to share with everyone that you were here before time, 10 minutes before time, just to get the feel of the whole place.
Yes. In my virtual space, I needed to get a feel of it, see how I'm positioned, how Madhujit is, going to be on the screen and all of that. So yes.
So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for such a
Parvati says, hello, madam, please turn on my video.
Oh.
Where's Parvati? Why can't we have Parvati's video?
Have it. Just a moment then. Let me get her as well.
Turn on all the videos.
Oh, I think they were able to, and then
I think 2 videos. There was one more person.
Where's Parvati? Why can't you turn on her
Parvati,
video?
you'll have to do it yourself now.
Oh, there she is.
There.
The rockstar drummer. Hi.
Fantastic. Fantastic job, both of you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And Kirtika did a great job of anchoring it. Very nice.
Voice is so soothing. I told Kirtika yesterday when she's asking questions, it's so soothing. It's nice for me to.
Beautiful. I agree, your voice, very strong. Nice.
All right. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks so much again. Thanks, Madhujit and Kirtika, this opportunity.
Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure.
And Madhujit, it was really pleasure. It was really a pleasure to have this. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sita. Thank you, Kirtika.
My pleasure, ma'am.
My pleasure. Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.